So we're always going to have the mechanistic and the relational ways of seeing the world, the physicalist and the idealist, the linear analytic and the process relational, the feminine and the masculine ways of seeing the world. And we'll also have two fundamentally different goal states at any time. This is foundational to existence itself, long before brains, is that we have the fundamentally different choice of coming in or going out. Coming in, the centripetal implosive mode, the yin, the going out, the entropic explosive centrifugal mode. So we're always going to have these different things. You're always going to have people that see the world differently, as well as we're always going to have different goal states, as well as the conditions of the environment are always changing. So what comes in between? Well, nature, the way, the pure man comes in between these two ways of seeing the world, bringing together the left and right hemispheric modalities of perception. Okay, but what else? How about this? What's in between? What's in between the mechanistic and the relational? Health. Okay, now health is the hardest thing to talk about of all, isn't it? People are very touchy. In fact, that's what's so interesting about the climate. But the climate is perfect because it's a little bit easier to talk about than your health and my health. And that way, we truly do need to lead by example, which I hope I'm doing. Okay, but the climate's very interesting in that we have these polar opposite sides saying two completely different things, and they can't both be right, okay? So we got people also in the middle saying other things. It's just an interesting situation. It involves science and our perception of reality, and it also happens to involve the living conditions, the weather, climate, as well as our chances for survival. So, it is relatively important, right? But it's just most critical to think about why, can we or can we not, and why can we or can we not approach these issues openly? Okay, do we come to the table with preconceived notions of what's already going on? We're already sure. Okay, I see people that have read every book there is to be read and know everything and don't seem to have any idea of what should be done in the world because, well, what should be done? Well, remember, there's two different goal states. One says nothing should be done. We should come in, we should center in the heart and heal. This is the fundamentally feminine perspective, conservative. No, nothing needs to be done. Well, I'm sorry, that's only half the battle. The other half says, no, there is things to be done, most certainly. There are things to be done, but bringing that into a correlation, a connection of causation with what's going on in nature, are we the enemy of nature and nature is the enemy of us? Well, you have to be able to at least address these questions before we're even stepping onto the stage of philosophical competency here, okay? These questions about what is nature are no small, side note to our favorite type of philosophy and our favorite physicist. No. Replicating, comprehending, and copying the laws of nature is our paramount objective, always and forever, or else you're not a Homo sapiens sapien, you're not connected to the reality of biological reality, and you're doing something else, and that exists. And this is a big question, because if we're only in the linear analytic mode of analysis, cognition, and we're not connected to the relational, the process, then what's to say that we don't become data, we don't become artificial intelligence, we don't become disembodied? So all these ideas, they all need to be applied to something, and that is not to say that philosophy should answer questions. Okay, but I'm saying if you don't start with questions, if you don't have a goal state in mind at the outset, do you magically find it later on? If you rule out the idea that intelligence is already intrinsic in nature, that nature does create systems, if you rule that out and think that it's all boiling down to entropy and there's no purpose and there's no nothing, well, that's an extremely nihilistic view to take. It's probably bad for your psyche, right? Because actually nature is beautiful. But what's important to consider is time scales, is in how we are relationally affecting time scales. Okay, we do move time backwards because time is relative. It's cyclical. Time is passing. This is the fundamental aspect of time, is that, oh yeah, tomorrow it's going to be different than today. I have that reasonable assumption. Okay. But that don't tell me that I'm still going to have my fingers. So play today. So it's health. It's health. You know, if you start slapping around on the keys and you're making a mess, you're losing the health of the music. Because the health actually can be measured, right? We get triggered when people suggest that we should change our health, you know, like health is a bad freaking idea, all right? But the health of the planet, again, it is relatively important. But the health criteria could be applied to almost any scenario. In biological systems, it has to do with redox robustness, with valence bonding, okay? It has to do with electron availability. It has to do with structured water conditions, okay? It has to do with carbon stability. Stabilized carbon is a metric for energy capacity of a system. Okay, these are real metrics for health of a system, and particularly the redox element, okay? The measure of voltage is a literal measure of chi energy. So the thing is that in vitality versus morbidity, in the conditions of vitality, life is creating the conditions for more life. This is what creative evolution is all about, because to really understand it's not just agential biology and purposiveness in organisms, it's what the universe is trying to do, is to create more life. That's what intelligence being encoded in this system is, okay? So that's the reality that we actually exist within nature. You could choose to leave now, you know, bye-bye, and go to transhumanism future. But to me, health. So it's the application of our ideas. What needs to be done? What needs to be done to create a future for our children? You know, that's a little bit bigger than our own opinions about things, isn't it?